Hello, YouTube. I'm Andrew Does Hair. You can find my work on Instagram at Andrew Does Hair. This is my client, Alex. I've been cutting this dude's hair for a very long time, like 15, 17 years, something like that. He's the homie. All right, I think he has like a private Instagram account. I don't know if he wants like a shout out here, but yeah, he's cool. I freaking love this guy. So as you can see, Alex has a little bit of a mullet. We kind of go back and forth with him. Sometimes you do this kind of 80s Jeff Goldblum look that you can see on him here. And then, sometimes it gets hot out and he goes back the other way. He does actually play hockey, so the mullet is for a purpose. What I'm going to do for his hair today is a haircut that is very loosely, roughly inspired by Cole Sprouse, an actor who I actually know very little about, but his haircut photo ends up in my chair a lot. Now, what you can see me doing here, I left in on purpose. I would have probably cut that out, but I tried to clip his hair up without wetting it first because I thought I would save 10 seconds of spraying hair by just clipping the top out dry. And then I found that it was very hard to do. So trying to save 10 seconds by not spraying his hair cost me 30 seconds by failing to clip it up in the first place and having to go back and respray it. So the reason I'm clipping the top out is I'm probably not going to cut much, if any, length off of there. I'm just taking out like a square shape from in front of the apex all the way to the front of the head, right about at the corners. And so now I can wet down the hair that I'm about to work with. And this is for the purposes we just witnessed. It's going to help me to get cleaner, tidier sections. It's going to help me to control the hair as I work with it. So this hairstyle is going to lay back on the sides, but not like slick back. It's just going to kind of casually flow back. So I will be taking diagonal back sections, pulling the hair out parallel to the floor and cutting it to a graduated shape, getting just ever so slightly shorter at the bottom. So comparing what we're actually doing here to the quote unquote inspiration photo, I am actually cutting Alex's hair a little bit shorter at the bottom of this section than what we see on the actor. And the reason being, Alex's hair actually curls a little bit more than what I think I'm seeing in those photos. And so if I did, inch for inch, an identical length to what we see in the photo, this hair wouldn't act the same way. And so when I see a picture of a haircut and I want to replicate it more or less, or at least draw inspiration from it, I'm not wagering how long the side of that hair must be and trying to emulate that. I'm looking at how the hair moves, and then I'm cutting the hair in my chair based on its own texture and its own growth patterns to make it emulate that vibe. And so we are actually going to end up shorter around the bottom here than what we're seeing in the inspiration photo, but it is for that purpose. We want to match the vibe, not the exact inch for inch length, because this is not the same head of hair. Now, something I kind of messed up on here that maybe I shouldn't point out, and if I didn't point out, maybe nobody would notice, is as I started getting to the back of his head here with these diagonal back sections, I kind of lost my place. And instead of working from the top of the head all the way down to the bottom, continuing to take long sections all the way up and down, I started jumping around up and like to the top of the head, to the bottom of the head. It honestly looks like such a rookie thing, and it kind of is. But for what we're doing here, it kind of doesn't matter. Really, like to me, the biggest downside to not systematically taking section and cutting all the way from one end of the section to the other is that, if I get distracted, like if somebody walks in and asks me a question and I stop doing the haircut for a second and then I go back to it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't remember where I was. But the reason I started jumping around like that is very similar to the mistake that I made in the beginning where I didn't wet the top of the hair to clip it up. I thought I was going to save a second. And when I was nearing the occipital bone, I wanted to just, like, what went through my head is like, well, I'll just like dial in this weight line here and then I'll go back and clean up everything at the bottom. And what it resulted in, both on the left side and the right side, is I bounce around. And what I tend to do when I'm bouncing around, like you're going to see here, is the hair that I'm pulling out, like everything I pick up and pull out, I'm looking at two different guides as I cut each section. It's not completely made up. I'm not just grabbing hair and cutting it wherever. I'm looking at, if you look right at the sort of crotch of my fingers where they meet, every time I pick up hair and cut it, I'm holding pre-cut hair there to see what I'm connecting the hair I'm cutting into. I can see what my guide is, like right there at the, again, like kind of crotch of my fingers there. Also, I can look through the hair that I'm about to cut or above the hair I'm about to cut to see the previous cut, whether above or below the section I'm holding. And so I'm not just like randomly grabbing hair and being like, oh crap, I lost where I'm at. Let me hope that this works. I'm picking up hair somewhat randomly, but still looking at guides every time I cut the hair. I see exactly where I need to cut. And again, if you look at some of these sections, you'll see that right at the base of my fingers where they meet. You can see the length that I'm shooting to connect to. And then at times above or below the section, you can see either through the section to the one below it, or above the section, the one hanging down to it. And it's connecting those dots that helps the haircut kind of work. Now, here's a fun thing about hair like this, and actually this exact specific head of hair. There was a long time where I used to think if somebody's curl patterns didn't go the right way, or if they had random curls that just didn't want to like lay with the rest of the curls, I used to just think like, well, it's unfortunate. You just have bad curl. And in fact, 10 years ago, I told Alex that probably once or twice. I would do a haircut, and at the end, I was like, oh, that sucks that it's not flipping the way you want it to flip. I guess your hair you just have that hair. And then what I learned over the years, and mind you, I'm by no means an expert at what I'm about to explain here. I'm just aware of it. And hopefully someday maybe I can develop some pretty serious expertise on the matter. But what I now believe is if you have a curl that's flipping out the wrong way and not matching the rest of the curls, that's because your hair was cut wrong. See, I used to, like many hair cutters, I would pick up the hair and go, okay, 2 inches here, 2 inches here, 2 inches here. That's not how haircuts work. When I started looking at like geometry and head shape and trying to learn how to more precisely tailor a haircut to a head, what I started learning is as I push the hair around, like you just watched me do, if I see a curl jump out the wrong way, if it doesn't flow, there's something wrong there. And so at this point where most of the length is knocked down, that's kind of what I'm doing is I'm pushing the curls around, I'm pushing the hair around, and anywhere I see some inconsistencies like, whoa, that's not matching up, or hey, that's going the wrong way. See with this shake and wiggle there, I'm looking for, I can see just by the way the curl lays, whether I cut it right or wrong. And there was a time when I used to kind of preach to like, well, if your curl's going the wrong way, just blow dry it right. But now I would say, hey, good hair still doesn't come from a jar. If your curl is laying wrong, you got to cut it better. So what I'm doing with the blow dryer here is just high heat and high power. And the only reason I'm blow drying this at all is I do plan to scissor over comb a lot of these edges around the bottom. And I want to get the hair laying somewhat uniformly in order to do that, because the hair's natural fall, or at least the direction I'm blow drying into the hair, is going to act as tension against the spine of the comb to help me get a more uniform cut. And see here on this side here, when I comb it down, you can see all the curls go the right way. And it's not by accident. It's kind of cut to do that. So I'm not a huge fan of the texturizing scissor typically. Like I don't use them a lot, but I do sometimes. And today I'm using them. Actually, the reason I've been using this one is it was given to me by Matt Beck over at Pre-Salon Education. Huge shout out to him. Thank you very much, Matt. He sent me both the scissors that I'm using in this video. And once I get to know them, and so far I really do like them. But once I really know that I like them, I'll post more about them, maybe figure out how to get like a promo code for you guys or something like that. But I cannot do that until I fully believe in them. So what I'm doing with this texturizing scissor, and the reason I'm using a texturizing scissor, not a regular scissor, is I'm kind of going in, and I like to think of the texturizing scissor like pencil sketching versus the edger is like drawing with a Sharpie marker. Like when you take a Sharpie marker to a paper, you have a mark, and it's really hard to like feather it out or blend it. Like it is just like a bold, fresh, wet line. And that's kind of what I feel like I get with the regular scissor doing this, or with the edger. But when I use the texturizing scissor, I can close it 5 or 6 times before I start to see a line slowly appear. And so just based on the way that I move this and the way that I drag it along the hair as I'm cutting, I can kind of lightly sketch in a line and slowly start to refine the hair to do what I want. Alex here actually has, maybe not bashing the guy or anything. He doesn't have a perfect hairline. Like it kind of grows in different directions. The density is not uniform. And by coming in here and kind of point cutting with the texturizing scissor, I can thin out the thick areas more and thin out the thin areas less, and essentially just produce a little bit more of a uniform look here, to where if I just went in with an edger, it would be like, bam, that's a bold Sharpie marker line. And so I at this point, I'm just kind of like combing around the head, pushing the hair, looking for where it looks heavy, thinning it out where it looks heavy, and just trying to get some semblance of uniformity down there before I go in and start buzzing things off with the edger. For a lot of hairlines, I will take, if they have hair that grows upward, like you can see on the right side of his nape here, for a lot of hairlines, I'll just shave all of that off, anything that grows straight upward. But in other cases, like in this one, I left some of the upward growing hair because it does produce like a shadow there. And what I didn't do on camera, but I went back to the left side of his nape here, and I kind of thinned it out a little bit more to make the gradient of that hair match the upward growing hair on the other side. I wish I would have done it on camera, but I didn't catch it until after we were done recording. So yeah, that's the whole detailing on this haircut is just taking the texturizing scissor and just kind of like without stamping in hard lines, just kind of cleaning things up just a little bit and just adding a little bit of uniformity. Now on the top here, we are going to leave it disconnected, but I don't want it super disconnected as I just did the finger wag a second ago, which is one of the cringy things I see on the internet that I like to do in jest. But so what I want to do is find the length in the front. And in this case, I'm just going to keep all the length we have. If he wanted a specific or needed a specific length in the front, I would start by cutting a guide there. But since I'm just going with what we have, I pull it out into space and then I look at where the hair from the back behind the clipped up hair connects to the side, and then I just connect the dots out in the air here. Now I'm elevating this hair as I cut it because that's going to make it fall more softly when I comb it down. It's not going to sit like a blunt heavy line. And the other thing that I'm doing as I'm connecting this long top to the back of the sides is I'm using my texturizing scissor again. And again, it's not a technique that I do super frequently, but you know, today I was just experimenting because sometimes you got to do that. So you'll see that my technique with the texturizing scissor is like I'll find the line that I want, and then just inside of that line, I'll start chopping, and I slowly start pulling my scissor and my fingers out and away as I chop, 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 and that's going to give me a very broken, kind of tattered, messy line instead of a blunt, hard line. I could get, you know, kind of a similar result with like some deep point cutting or some like punch cutting, but that's a lot more work, and this is just kind of a lot faster. Actually, I got this entire haircut done in about 20 minutes, which was pretty cool. I don't know. Sometimes I'm proud of myself when I'm able to do that while recording. I do it all day long with clients when need be. So here for product, I'm using ADH Dry, available at salons and barbershops all over the place. But if you're not near any of them, check out adhbrand.com. I'm applying this product mostly to the roots and then scrunching it a little bit through the curls and dragging a little bit over the sides here. I didn't blow dry the top at all. I barely blow dried the sides, just a scissor over comb it. There's a little lump in there I got to rub out. And I'm just scrunching and wheeling the hair and letting it just kind of do its thing. So here's our end result. Very loosely based on Cole Sprouse. You can see lots of natural movement, lots of texture. We've got a little bit of those messy, unrefined, yet refined edges. And, you know, we have a hairstyle that's just going to really lean nicely into what his hair naturally wants to do. This is wash and wear. This is wake up and go. And this is a haircut that's going to look good on him for probably 3 or 4 months before he has to return.